Welcome to How to Be an Information Detective. In this video, you will learn how to discover the best sources of information for your work and how to evaluate information sources for reliability. Information is everywhere, in books, journals, online, on TV, and in other places all around us. Thinking critically about the information you find, no matter what the source is very important because some information sources are more reliable than others. You will want to think about the context of the information production when you review sources. How is the information produced? Who created it? And for what purpose? One of the first things you will want to determine is whether the information you have found is a scholarly information source or a popular information source. Both can be useful depending on what your project is, but they have different characteristics. Scholarly information sources usually come from peer-reviewed journals or scholarly books. They also contain references, which means that you can find out exactly where the authors got their information, and you can review those sources as well if you need more information. Most scholarly sources contain no advertising, and their primary purpose is to inform the reader. Scholarly sources often delve more deeply into topics than popular sources do, and they draw on the work of other scholars and refer to other studies. Popular sources include newspapers, magazines, TV news reports, and blogs, and they usually lack complete references or may not make passing mention to other studies, reports, or interviews. This makes it harder to verify the information in the source and harder to dig deeper if you want more details. Popular sources often do contain advertising, and although the purpose of some popular sources may be to inform readers or viewers, the purpose may also be to entertain, persuade, influence, or even sell something. Popular sources may be useful for providing a general overview of a subject, but usually do not go very deeply into a topic. There are also sources that do not fit neatly into either category, and these are often called professional sources or in-between sources. They include trade publications, professional organization newsletters, and some government websites. They can also include more in-depth sources created for general audiences. Depending on the topic you are researching, you may find some of these sources valuable, but they are going to lack the detail of true scholarly sources. In-between sources can sometimes direct you to more scholarly sources, though, if they include references or suggestions for further reading. Now we are going to look at a few different information sources discussing the spread of the Ebola virus in Africa. The first is from Newsweek magazine. This would be a popular source, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true or not based on facts, but it's going to be a shorter, less detailed treatment of a topic, and it will probably not include references to research studies or scholarly work. If we read the article, in fact, we would see that it refers to a lot of popular movies about epidemics to help readers imagine different scenarios, and then it refers to some reports on climate change. None of the reports it mentions are actually about the Ebola virus, though, so a lot of the so-called information in this article is conjecture. The second information source is also a popular source, but it has some things in common with what we call professional or in-between sources. It is an article from National Geographic magazine, which is written for general audiences, but is much more in-depth than the Newsweek article was. This article is based on interviews with doctors and healthcare workers in Sierra Leone reporting on what they have seen. It does not provide a reference list, but it does refer to the sources of its information, such as the World Health Organization and the World Bank. The third article is from a scholarly journal called Third World Quarterly. It is a peer-reviewed journal, which means that all of the research articles published in the journal have gone through the peer review process and been approved for publication by experts in the field. Among the sources the article cites in its reference list are other research studies done by scholars in public policy, health, and other related fields. Although you still want to use your own judgment to evaluate the credibility of this source, the fact that it has been through peer review and cites the work of other scholars goes a long way towards verifying the reliability of the information it provides. Now, once you begin your research and find some information sources, you want to evaluate their reliability. Librarians have developed some criteria for you to use when you perform this evaluation, and they are currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Currency is simply how recent the information is and whether or not it matters to you if the information is recent or not. For some topics, it will matter a lot if the topic is about recent events or the field of study is evolving quickly. For other topics, it might not matter so much, and an older article might be just as valuable as a more recent one. Relevance refers to whether or not the information source addresses the topic you are actually researching. Remember the Newsweek article about Ebola? It referenced some climate change studies, but it was not clear that those studies actually addressed the Ebola crisis. Authority is the authority of the author. Is the author an expert in the field with relevant degrees, job titles, or other credentials? Has the author published other work on this topic? Accuracy refers to the information presented in the article. Is it factual and verifiable? Can you use the references to check the source of the information? Purpose is the reason the article was written. Is the author trying to inform readers or persuade them to do something, to vote a particular way, or to buy something? Librarians refer to this test by its acronym, the CRAP test, which makes it easy to recall. One thing to remember when you are evaluating information is that it's always up to you to decide what is important in your particular context. You should think about what your intended use of the piece is and what types of authority are sufficient or desirable for that use. You can search for information in a variety of places, but by using library databases, you may find that it is easier to target reliable and relevant sources. You can choose databases of information curated for your subject area, or you can use interdisciplinary databases that will bring up results from multiple disciplines and subject areas. You can then use filters to limit your results to academic journals, peer-reviewed sources, or even popular sources if that is what you need to find for your particular project. Then you can apply CRAP test criteria to the results and choose the very best information sources for what you are working on. Additional search tools that can help you hone in on the best information sources include Boolean operators such as AND, OR, and NOT that can help you narrow or broaden a search. You can use the asterisk to truncate a word so that you can search for similar terms with just one search. You can use quotation marks to specify an exact word or phrase that you want to find with your search. And you can limit by publication date, language, or other criteria that will help you filter out results that are less useful to you. Once you've gotten some good information sources, make sure that you cite them. You will need to cite your sources in your reference list as well as in the text where you use them. You will want to use the citation style preferred by your professor or discipline, such as MLA, APA, or other styles. Luckily, the library provides numerous tip sheets, guidelines, and formatting information to help you cite your sources correctly. Just look for the Cite Sources tab within the specific subject or course guide on the library website, or click on the Get Help on the menu on the library homepage. If you have any other questions about citation, research, or related topics, just contact the library by email, chat, or in person at the research desk. Good luck!